I am Joshua K. Sabra, Esquire, and he is Dr. Miles Salisbury. And you are listening to the Miles Ahead podcast, where we share tactics, techniques, and protocol to improve your physical, mental, and spiritual health while you walk the path of the warrior. Stay tuned. On today's episode, Dr. Miles and I give you the keys to the kingdom. We answer the age-old question, how on earth do I motivate myself? So we will tell you how not to do it, what mistakes people make when they think of ways to motivate themselves and encourage themselves to do something. And then we give you the easiest, simplest, and fastest way to stay motivated all the time. Stay tuned.
And we're back. Oh, Jinx. Said at the same time as you.
Truly game on. Happy Monday for our first Monday pod, Miles. What are you listening to?
Man Talks podcast and Man Uncivilized podcast.
You're all about the boys, aren't you?
Yep. Been doing deep dives on men's work for the last 6 months. Learning more.
Great. That's awesome, man. What was the topic of conversation on Man Talks?
I burned through like 3 of them today. One of them was cool. He was so Connor. He just had a daughter, his second kid, and he was talking about paternity leave and him taking 2 months and why our culture doesn't really support that, and how like men take a lot of shit for it. And like he was talking about when he used to work for Apple, some executive didn't get promoted because he took the full time off and like got punished for it basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't say that's why, but everyone knew that was why. And when I used to do the medical review chart thing for an insurance company, they gave me a whole 2 weeks off for paternity leave.
Yeah. 2 weeks?
Are you fucking kidding me? In Germany, they have this thing called Elternzeit, which means parent time, directly translated. And it's like a year. And I think the guy gets like 6 months and it's paid.
It's 2 years for the woman.
That's what it is, yeah. And then after that, you have like a version of FMLA. Like if you want to stay longer, you don't get paid, but you don't lose your job kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something similar for the man. It's just not as long. But of course, that's why you get paid. You get taxed at the ass there because that's where the money comes from. But I think for a culture standpoint, it's super important for attachment and bonding with your kids. And like, we really don't do a good job at it. But that was the one that stuck out amongst many good ones.
Yeah. Probably 80% of the damage to our society can be summed up into that first 5 to 7 years of being raised by, essentially a single parent mom.
Yep. Absent fathers.
When I say 80%, I mean me. But I mean me, the people I grew up with, the people in my community. So if you're listening to this and you don't know any of those people, text me. I'll tell you the story.
Yeah, it does. The pockets where you grow up do matter. Yeah, but on average, yeah, we just do not support the man being home to be like. It's kind of weird, right? Like, oh, you just blew out your vagina and it's sewn up, and you're like, you have a baby and like you have to breastfeed and like can't barely walk. I'm going to go to work. Good luck. Like what's going on? Like if you have a mother-in-law to come help, great. But
if he's even there,
yeah. No wonder we have so many problems. I mean, this is just a small sliver of attachment wounding right here. But.
My grandfather, who was a real son of a bitch. My grandfather on my mother's side was an onerous, antisocial person. And when I was born, he made my dad's lunch. And so my dad would have lunch when he went off to work at a lumber camp. And it was an act of generosity that was very strange for him. and he was a out of work mechanic. I'll be very generous when I say that. My grandfather, not my father. My father was a vagabond chainsaw operator, and
Sounds like a horror movie setup.
in so many ways. And but he was trying to incentivize him to be like, hey, listen, we need you around here, you know.
So he was trying to do something good.
Yeah.
In his own way.
Yeah. See, it's it might be one of the only acts of generosity I've ever even heard of from my maternal grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
So
was that scarce for your family system?
Yeah, very scarce.
On the masculine side, anyways, or the paternal side?
Oh.
Or you got it on both ends?
No matter how you slice it. But point is families are important, and they're stitched together with hope and dreams in this country. A lot of hope and dreams. But I've been listening to, not a shocker, a lot of metal. Still.
Just
always.
Well, you're in the gym a lot, so it does.
Yeah, it comes up, thankfully.
Yeah. Well, you're putting on the Weezer station all the
and
time.
Metallica. And Metallica and Weezer cover a lot of ground.
They do, yeah.
You get a lot of grunge and punk and a lot of
Today was
rock.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to answer the question that is probably the most important, probably the question I get asked the most. Not how do you build muscle? How do you burn fat? How do you motivate yourself? And I find it perplexing because I'm always like, motivate to what? And I think there's a lot more that goes into that question than people think. So I thought this would be a great time to talk about motivation, what it is, what it isn't, how not to do it, how to do it properly, and most importantly, how to motivate yourself. But it's a widely misunderstood concept, the concept of motivation.
Yeah, widely written about, lots of books. You know, don't trust motivation, trust discipline, trust habits, that kind of thing, which I think do factor. But we'll try to keep it like, would you use the Webster's dictionary version of motivation? What was it?
The Webster's dictionary motivation, the Webster's definition of motivation is the reason why you take an action, or more generally, moving towards pleasure, more away from pain.
So we're working off that one in a way.
Yeah.
It can get convoluted otherwise, which is fair.
At the root, you know, if you ask people to define motivation, most of the time people will just look at you blankly. And like, people think of like a motivational speaker as someone who razzes you up.
Right. It's outside of you. Yeah.
That's an entertaining speaker. Tony Robbins is a both motivating and entertaining and educational, right? He's trying to ramp up your nervous system, self-stated, right? That's the purpose of his events. If you've ever gone, he's trying to ramp you up, put you in a state. He calls it the state. Change your state.
And if you actually digest that and keep doing it, it can work. Problem is, most people don't.
Yes, you decide what kind of state you're in, and you can really, and I'll talk about a little bit about how I quote unquote motivate myself here in a second, but psychological tools are the only tools when it comes to motivation. Because physical motivation is like, unless you're going to hit someone with a stick or have sex with them, you're not physically motivating them or feed them or withhold food, right? So the physical motivation is not a thing.
It's pretty much down to like fight, flight, or freeze. Like, I'm motivated to not get punched in the face when this guy comes at me or whatever. Or like, I'm motivated to take a pee because I have to pee.
Yes.
It's like your brain stem's doing that work.
That's
maybe
correct.
your limbic brain.
That's right. And yes, you can use physical enforcement and physical rewards, but really the motivation comes from within. Well, let's go deeper with this, because to know how to motivate yourself, it's important to know how not to motivate yourself. Now, on the surface, this will seem counterintuitive, or maybe if you're listening to this and this seems foreign to you, that this podcast is for you, because what most people believe is motivation is just pressure, external pressure placed upon them by a boss, by a significant other, by a coach,
themselves,
by themselves, pressure to perform, which is basically chastisement for lack of performance,
criticism.
And I asked you a question, Miles, a couple days ago about think of a time where you felt pressure and it was in it didn't work or it worked in a negative way, and you had a really good story. So I wanted you to cue you up for that.
Yeah, and you also asked me one that was good, so I'll give you the shit one first.
Shit one first. Yeah, let's go. This is the how not to motivate.
How not to motivate. Yeah, this is a good one. Especially if you've experienced childhood malarkey like we did. I do have a sneaking suspicion why a lot of veterans that do get PTSD had fucked up childhoods, and it's why they're so affected by stuff that they see and do on the battlefield. Like it hits them a little. They're not as anti-fragile. It probably would have been me if I would have been shot at. Anyways, yeah, had rough upbringing. Not compared to a lot of people, but in the emotional realm. When I had a big blowout with my mom when I was 15, I moved in with my dad, and then I had a stepmom who I don't think really liked me very much, and probably had borderline personality disorder. Maybe she's shit out these days. I don't have a whole lot of contact with her, but it always was as if she was trying to split our relationship and pit me against him. So he was already distant in my life, and I didn't want to distance anymore and say, hey, this woman's kind of making me feel like shit, saying a lot of weird shit, doing a lot of manipulations. I just kind of ignored it. And so I just kind of held all that crap in, and I already felt, it made me feel shame. I felt like I was bad inside, like just, I must be bad. My dad is away. My mom's always telling me to be a good Mormon, and I said, fuck that. And then this stepmom lady is telling me I suck and I should leave. So I'm in sports, and this is where...
You're 15?
Yeah, let's see. At 15, and 15, I was doing okay in sports, still rough with the mom. And then 16, I went from Westland High to Lake Oswego High, which are enemy schools. So I felt like a traitor. And totally different cultures at the time. Westland was more regular. Now it's like Oswego, but I'll talk about that.
You're in Westland at this time?
This time, so when I moved to my dad, I'm in LO.
Okay, so now you're in LO. So you're a trader.
I'm a trader. Had a whole new basketball coach, whole new soccer coach, whole new track. Those are the three that I did. And this showed up mostly in basketball, and a lot of people that played in my era remember this coach. I don't need to name him because they don't know what I'm talking about. He probably was a World War II vet or a Korean vet, I'd imagine. He probably had PTSD, but he was like Bobby Knight. He would just yell at you and say, why would you do that? What are you fucking thinking? You're dumbass. You're just never anything good. You're not my friend, or like weird shit. Like,
you're not my friend?
Yeah, you're like, there's never like a peer-to-peer. He was basically emphasizing like, I am over you and you must listen, and there's never going to be a peer-to-peer. And we never felt like...
Oh, he would say things like, we're not friends. I'm your coach. And that is that's a very unskilled attempt at role clarity.
Very unskilled.
Yeah.
I mean, it made it clear, just in the wrong ways. Like it's just bad leadership all around. I mean, that kind of shit works acutely on the battlefield when someone's getting shot at. Only, like, get out of here. You're getting shot at. Only.
It doesn't even work then. But it's okay. So continue the story. So this guy's berating you in practices.
In games, and not just me, everybody.
Sure. Okay. So he's just a negative coach.
Yep. Not quite as bad as Bobby Knight throwing chairs at refs and shit.
So you made it to a game. So you made it through preseason or practices, and now you're playing games. And so he's still hostile to you and to the team and the refs.
Oh yeah, he got after the refs too. Yeah. It just felt like he was telling us how bad we were, and he thought that was going to make us play better. And I already thought I was pretty bad, and so it was like it just crushed me. Like I collapsed. And I was like, I need to get away from this motherfucker. I don't want to feel any more of this. I don't want to rise up. I want to go away. And so I ended up bagging it. And I was a really good fucking basketball player. And then the same thing happened in soccer. The coach was more passive aggressive about it. And I was like, fuck this. I was just pissed at the world. I was like, fuck all this shit. The only sport I stuck with was track because the coach was nice.
So I think in those experiences, you are experiencing verbal abuse and emotional abuse from an authority figure.
Who I didn't feel like had my best interest. If I would have known that they had my best interest and they cared and they were doing this as a reason to help me out, I could have taken more of that probably. I still wouldn't have liked it, but I could have at least understood a little bit more. I still wouldn't have responded as well, but it would have been better than I really felt like the dude hated me.
You can't argue a negative, right? So we will not know what would have happened if it was different, but you felt that your coach hated you. Someone who hates you is trying to make your life harder, is not your friend, is kind of weaponizing their position of authority to badger you. And oh, by the way, as you pointed out, doesn't produce good results.
No, we lost a lot.
We lost a lot. This is what so many coaches and athletes think coaches are supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it blows my mind.
Yeah, I still do it.
The amount of people who I've been in coaching groups since for a long time, and there is a whole subculture. They comment. They come to these events. They comment on the YouTube videos, and they're like, "Yeah, well, negative reinforcement is still reinforcement." I mean, the shit that I would say when I was a young sergeant: negative reinforcement is still reinforcement.
It technically is, but not good reinforcement. It'll just reinforce you to do what they do in their presence, and when you're not in their presence, you won't.
Well, and it makes the people that you're talking to think you don't like them, right?
Yeah.
Which is, and this is not a sign of success. But I got a message from a soldier that I used to be in charge of, and she said, and I've got the opposite of this too, but this is just a window into how bad you can go. She said, "I'm doing really well, just so you know," like, as though I didn't want her to succeed, as though I was like an adversarial person in her life, right? Like, despite our relationship, she's successful, right? And I thought about that at the time. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then now I think like, oh, she survived her time on my team.
She's telling you.
Yeah.
She outlasted you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sad. That makes me sad for me.
Right.
And also sad for her. I'll reach out to her and see how she's doing. But that, if the list of people that I have to apologize to grows by the day as my awareness grows for how poorly I've come off in the past.
Yeah, we all have that.
But it was a wartime army, and we were in a war zone.
You're stressed out.
So not only was I not my best self, but your best self degrades over time when you're in those situations. But
and did you have a good leader teaching you how to lead? And then I was bringing up boot camp and things like that, and like with the Coast Guard Auxiliary, like it's more like ROTC, like we get that on base or whatever, and it's not even the same thing. And you were saying the way the drill instructors worked with you was different than the way this guy was yelling at me, because everyone thinks you go to boot camp and they're fucking yelling at you, and I mean, everyone's experience is a little bit different, but the way you phrase it and the way you experience it is slightly different.
Yeah. So for pressure, and this was your positive pressure story, right? This is like where you felt like, because it's a Coasties program, right?
Yeah, like no one's like, there are no drill instructors. Like ROTC, there are no real drill instructors. All there are ROTC people, there are no, like, you maybe have somebody yelling at you, or like someone's practicing becoming a first lieutenant or whatever, and they're getting yelled at, quote unquote. But it's not like boot camp and where you get the gas chamber thing and all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
you remember all that? It's different. There is a lot of yelling. Like my brother went through both basic training and officer candidate school, and vastly different experiences. He got yelled at a lot in basic, and an officer candidate was like, "Here is this book on leadership. Pretty much, go memorize it." And then they make everyone try to figure it out and see how they figure out the problems. And it's not a bunch of yelling. It's more like see how they can get together and figure these problems out as leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit different experience. But when I was talking about that yelling, you had talked about your experience in boot, and it was different.
So to remind people what we're talking about how not to motivate. And when you berate somebody and you have an adversarial relationship with them, you become an obstacle between them and the objective. So your coach, not only was he not helping you play basketball, he actually made your basketball worse. And and the team lost.
I would like freeze up and shit because I would be scared of even doing anything.
And then you left the team.
Yep, and I fuck this. And then I went and played City League and balled out.
Yeah, you had fun, right? You had fun. Lo and behold.
Yeah.
So if you want a masterclass on coaching, watch Ted Lasso.
That's a great show.
Because he's all about having fun, developing the characters, the players.
Mm-hmm.
And then his assistant coach said, "We're in the pros now. Now it is about winning. If someone isn't working out, you have to bench them, right?" And he's like, winning is a factor now. Mm. And it wasn't the factor before, although in college we all know it's like the pros, they'll fire you.
They'll fire you.
Yeah. But the point is performance goes down.
Mm-hmm.
When you become adversarial to the people. Pressure doesn't create good results. That's the point we're trying to make.
No, not that kind of pressure at all. That's intense ass pressure.
So putting pressure on somebody just reduces their ability to make good decisions and to win. And in basic training, in the Army basic training, of course there's pressure, right? There's the shark attack when you get off the bus, and the drill sergeants are giving you instructions on how to get to your rack. Mm-hmm. And that process takes about 6 hours because you don't know how to move, and you need to crawl, and you need to walk and run and pick up, your rug, and you have to put it down, and your duffel. And so they work the shit out of you for the whole first day is like PT, and it's pain and compliance. And it's like, you will do as we say. And they're also weeding out the people who aren't going to play along because it's basic training is a big it's a cultured environment to change your identity. It's brainwashing. It's cultivated brainwashing for a purpose of creating soldiers. And if you're not going to follow instructions, they need to know fast. They're going to escort you out. Like, there's a fast way out of basic training, and it's to quit. And if you're going to quit, they want to know right away. So they put pressure on the group, see who coheses and who isolates, and then give that person a chance to learn how to play the game. Mm-hmm. And so the pressure's on immediately. But what they say to you is not "you suck." It's not "you're slow." If you're fat, they will say you're fat. They'll say you'll get off the bus, and if you're 320 pounds, they'll be like, "Oh, someone in our weight loss program has arrived." They speak the truth, but to stay in the Army, you have to be in regulation, right? So they know you're gonna lose weight. You didn't know how to before, but you will learn now. And so they're going to get you in regulation and meet the standards, right? Which is the point that we're making is they are creating new reference points for you. Mm-hmm. Your reference point on what an early morning is changes. Your reference point on what hard work is changes. Your reference point on what you are capable of changes. Mm-hmm. You will run, like when you're running, they say things to you like, you will not be in my army and run this slow. And that's just literal truth. They're just like, if you run this slow on your PT test, you will fail. And when you fail, that means you do not get to be a soldier, right? So they're just telling you the truth. Now, it's implied inside of that is that you want to be a soldier, that you want to meet the standard. So it is pressure, and it's a form of smack talk, but it's smack talk to your own personal values. If you don't have a heart, if your heart isn't in it, then nothing that they're saying even matters. So they're speaking to your soul and who you want to be. And they're adjusting your reference points. Now, when they talk about physical training, you know what that means. When they talk about we're getting up early, you know what that means. When they talk about you will give 100%, you don't know what that means, but you will, right? So they're adjusting your reference points.
There's some why behind it, yeah.
I mean, the layers of psychology are so great. To overcome your nervous system's instinct to run away from someone trying to kill you.
Yeah, dude, yeah.
They have to override everything. Yep. And so they're going to override everything. And so you're going to rehearse it every day.
Yep, stress inoculation.
So, but no one ever called me a name.
It wasn't ad hominem. That's what it felt like to me.
That's correct. A character attack. And I even said, like, they said, like, I wrote down on my bio, I come from a long and distinguished line of trailer park trash. And they laughed a lot, but they never repeated it.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't buy into that identity.
You're feeling the emotion about it right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Stay with that. That's beautiful. Yep. That is a good thing. What a good thing that they did. As Connor would say, let yourself be affected by that. Yeah. Strong emotions are beautiful.
One of the fundamental truths or fundamental skills is to be able to enter someone else's world without taking on their beliefs.
And then you felt supported. You felt cared for.
Felt seen, but without, they wouldn't honor that part of the story.
Yeah, they wouldn't let you beat yourself up.
Yeah, and they wouldn't participate. So
it's a sign of love.
Yeah, it's a funny thing to say, but
no, it makes complete fucking sense. Yeah. And what was largely missing from your life growing up?
Yeah, I think there's a learned helplessness that many people have. I had, and it was enculturated. It's part of how you defeat generational trauma or generational poverty or any sort of macro learned helplessness when that's the language of your family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're Irish, you have a drinking problem. If you're from Roseburg, Oregon, you can't hold down a job, you know, or whatever. And being able to acknowledge that past and not buy into it is a important part of changing the story.
Yeah, in internal family systems, they call it legacy burdens. Might not even be something you believe in, but it's a burden from your family's legacy. Going back how many generations, who knows? But
that's right. So the pressure, it's good pressure if someone is speaking to an aspirational identity that you have, right? In the case that in basic training, it's to be a soldier. In the case of a basketball team, it's to be a basketball player.
Yeah, good teammate, good player on your own as well.
That's right. And so you had an experience. Was that your story you're sharing in the Coast Guard of going through basic training and that being a positive, structured environment of pressure?
The positive one I was going to bring in. Yeah, well, that's all. Yeah, that's never been really negative. I mean, if I would have gone through what my brother went through, I would have had a different experience, I'm sure. And that's why I said, you know, had I had my wish come true and gone to the Naval Academy or the Marines like I wanted to in high school, I would have known they're trying to do this, just like you said, to make me better. Even if there were some strongly stated statements or yelling, it wasn't like personal. And I knew the reason for it. I didn't know why my coach was yelling like that. I don't know why there was so much hate. It didn't feel good. I did not believe he had our best interests. So it all undercutted all of us. For good pressure, quote unquote. One that came to mind when you asked, I don't know why this one came to mind first, but it did. When I was about to end my master's degree, my dad at the time was helping me financially, so I didn't have to, so I could focus on my studies and not have to work a 40-hour-a-week job at the same time. He was like, well, it's time to, learn about money and stuff, so I'm cutting you off, basically. Like, no, hey, in 3 months, it's like, here, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And put me a bit of a tailspin, and it freaked me out. But it was good because it forced me to, okay, let's figure this out. I've had jobs before. Like, my dad made me get a job at 15. Has done some of these things that were good for me, just a little quick and harsh. He didn't buy me a fancy car and went to high school. He bought me a fucking Honda Accord, which I thought was amazing. He just cut a check and was like, you just wrote a check for a car at the dealership? And I roll into go with my Honda Accord, and motherfuckers have brand new Porsches and BMWs. And I'm like, I am in a different game.
So what we were saying is that you didn't know why or how it was beneficial to you at the time.
At the time, but I appreciate it after the fact because it did force me to get with the program and like, okay, I just learned about, what I'm learning about in school. Now I got to learn about supporting myself with what I'm going to do when getting a job from said program. So it was good because otherwise it'd be hobbled. Like I'm imagining like those guys that had Porsches in high school, like were they like that up until 40? It's like having a cast on your leg until you're 40. And it's like, hey, now you got to go run a marathon. Bros, you've been hobbled. You didn't even know how to run. Now you're going to learn how to run at 40. Like that's really hard. So we want to be teaching our kids these things at a young age. And he was in his own way trying to do that. I also think he's kind of a nice guy and didn't want to feel bad, like make me feel bad. So I think it was like, this is it and see you later. I don't think he wanted to deal with it.
Well, I think you're right. He was being generous to himself and to you. And that might have been comfortable. And you used the term forced. Is that how you would think about it now?
What do you mean?
Like you said, I was forced to do these things. Like he forced me into it.
No, the circumstance forced me into it. Right. There ain't no free money coming in anymore. I mean, I had like student loan, some extra student loan money. That's basically how I was living, was that with his, he wasn't even giving me that much. I was living really poor, but it was just me.
Sure.
And some roommates. It's college. It's just master's degree, same as undergrad. Like it's the same fucking shit. But it forced me to like figure out saving, investing, reading books on money, getting a job, and like, oh shit, you don't really make a whole lot until you get your license. And like, it was like a big eye opener. So felt like a lot of pressure.
It doesn't work. Yeah. Like, when I was in college, it's when I started becoming a personal trainer. Cause like, the labor market at the time this is what I remember. I was like, oh, I need money. And I like followed job openings to like UPS or places where I could just go and get a job now. But they were like, okay, you're on a wait list. You show up at 4 a.m. to toss boxes for $6 an hour if we need you. If not, you go home and you come back again, and you do that for months, and then you get on the permanent crew, and then you work your way up to driver, and I was thinking like $6 an hour sometimes. How are people eating? Like,
dude, yeah.
Or $7.25.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when I was in college, but it was like, I just back of the envelope, I was like, that's not going to pay any of my bills.
That's not penciling out.
So I became a personal trainer, and was able to make marginally more.
That's good. You didn't go jump into the rat race. That's kind of sort of what I did, and I did that in 2008 too. By the way, I don't even know how I fucking got a job because everything was collapsing, but I did. It didn't pay shit, but I did. First job was doing group psychotherapy with repeat DUI offenders.
So you got to be in your field.
Yes, hardest job I ever had, but they didn't know what the hell they're doing. They're like, "Oh, you're the mental health guy."
Well, you're not going to turn these assholes around.
Oh, but I did. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them. Yeah, I figured that was another. Hey, there's another good pressure story. That was fucking pressure. Okay, we were taught to work in a group with like one person and like 10 to 12 maybe. Otherwise, get a co-facilitator, right? It was me and like 40 men and women. It was the hardest intensive therapy I've ever done to this day. Freshly off alcohol, white knuckling people have had trauma, like hard ass fucking therapy. So
for the listener now, this is basically a 201 level class on motivation and pressure. When the pressure comes from a person and not the circumstances and the environments, you're already in a bad way, because the consequences should be the motivation for a person, and the consequences for you doing a good job was being successful in your field and getting your teeth cut in a really hard, really tough line of work.
Mm-hmm.
But the rewards were that you got to be in the game. Right?
Yeah.
You get to play at a level that's very challenging very quickly.
Yeah, trial by fire.
So the environment created these results and created the natural pressure. But a person yelling at you is not only is it not natural pressure, it's bad. So if you're motivating yourself by talking shit to yourself, or most importantly, if you're a parent, you cannot create consequences. You cannot yell at your kid enough for getting them to want to mow the lawn. I'm not a parent, but having not had anything purchased for me by my parents, I thought that was great. I thought that was fine, because why would they want to buy me a PlayStation and then tell me not to play it? Like, right? Like
I never thought of it that way.
Why would
it's literally called a PlayStation?
Why would they want to give me a reason to yell at me about something else I'm doing, right? Because I was a never do well anyway.
They're always yelling at you anyways.
So, and by parents I mean the moms and dads of Roseburg, because I lived around a bunch of different people. But the point I'm making is that you can't create consequences for your kids that are not part of the environment. So on the flip side, I'm imagining here, but I hear people raise their kids in this way of, I don't give my kids money. They earn it through chores, right? And then if they want to buy a pizza, they buy a pizza. If they want to buy a, video game or whatever, great. If they don't want to buy it, well, I'm not going to make their life, I'm not going to turn them into someone I hate by buying them things I already don't want them to have. But if they choose to do it of their own accord, great. Kid wants to buy a guitar and annoy the shit out of me with his guitar. Awesome.
It's a good life lesson. Yeah.
Right. And that seems organic to me. Now, every family's different, and you can choose to do it however you like. Mm-hmm. But good pressure is environmental, it's natural, and it's part of the reward system of doing a good job. So a kid will get into music if they like music and they like playing music. That's enough. You don't have to force them into something like a super strict parent. And if you want to, fight that battle. I don't know enough about parenting, and I was raised in a militaristic environment, as you can tell, and I'm happy with that. So if I were raising kids, I would let mostly nature take its course. But for the purpose of this conversation, we're talking about motivation and pressure. So how not to motivate yourself. Tell someone else what to do, yell at them, become a part of the problem, berate them, chastise them.
Make it personal.
Negative reinforcement. Mm-hmm. So we've also been talking about how you do motivate somebody, right? Or if you were trying to motivate yourself, you have to create new reference points for yourself. And the distance between you and your own internal reference point or baseline or standard, that distance is the level of motivation that you're going to have to bridge the gap. And for me, I have a very high level of physical standard. I have a very high level of mental standard, meaning how my mental piece has to be very high. And for me, there's some things hygienically I need to do. I need to go to therapy. I need to read books.
Work out.
I need to journal. I need to exercise every single day. And I don't need coaching on that. My reference point is quite high. My internal identity is I'm on the path of the warrior. I'm a soldier. Mm-hmm. I'm not in the army anymore, but that's just part of my identity now.
The ethos stayed with you.
And it was taught to me as soon as I joined the army. We work out every day. Done. There was no more conversation than that. And when I was, so it's just so my reference point is very particular on that subject. So if you're trying to motivate yourself, you change your reference points. I hear this thrown out all the time by young business owners. I want to make 6 figures. I want to make 7 figures. Okay, great. Well, your new reference point needs to be X amount of sales per year then to make that money, right? So do you do the math? If your reference point is, I want to be 10% body fat. Okay, that's your new reference point. Now, immerse yourself in the world of that is in alignment with that values, that reference point. So what do you the age old question? It's a boring question, but it's important. What would I do if I'm at 10% body fat? How would I solve this problem? What would I eat every day? How would I work out? How would I sleep? How would I take care of my energy and my time? How would I love myself if I were going to be at 10% body fat? If I were going to be in a loving relationship with another person? How would I show up as like, those are the questions that organize yourself to your own reference point. And if you don't know the answer, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Then this is where adaptive behaviors get into play, and having a high EQ and having a high IQ will help you speed up the program, speed up the process. And we're going to talk about that next. But when it comes to changing reference points, does that feel right to you when you think about behavior change for yourself, Miles?
So like making like, if I want to be X person, I need to know what kind of qualities that person has, and I need to start having the behaviors that lead to those qualities.
Okay, I'll give you a concrete example, right? So my mindset is I need to be in a peak physical condition. I'm not very strong and muscular, right? I think I boxed at 165 when I was in the Army. So I probably weighed 175 on average. I didn't really know how to put on muscle. I didn't really know what was required of me. So I just picked out some power lifters and some strength athletes that were articulate. They could be very specific about what they did, their process. And I just...
It's been like mentors and role models and examples.
Exactly. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to live like that until I feel something change or something different. I'm just going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the answers are self-evident. Like, my barbell training 3 times a week, felt great, built muscle, got stronger, saw the results. And then, okay, what else do I have to do? Okay, change the diet. All right, do that. And then, 2.5 years later, I'm 195. Great. Mission accomplished. Right. And so the IQ EQ part is identifying the people who are living the way that you need to live to get that result. So the term for this in the teaching world is embodiment. Who's embodying the result you're trying to create? How do they show up? How do they talk? How do they sound? How do they sleep? What are they doing? And people resonate with us in different ways. And there might be a phrase that they'll say, a mantra that they have, an attitude, but there's something that they do or say or show up with that is exactly in alignment with a part of us. And that's the thing we fall in love with and then need to become.
Resonates with it, yeah. Yeah, I don't like IQ very much and EQ. Because it's like, it feels like a fixed thing. Like it's like an anti-growth mentality. However, there is a natural intelligence that everybody is born with, of course. And then EQ, I think there's something like that too, but I think you can also learn to be more emotionally intelligent. And then you can learn more knowledge and you can increase your IQ test scores, I guess. So I don't know if that's what you mean by these two. Are you just trying to say if you're quote unquote smart about it and like intellectually and emotionally, you'll probably get there?
Love, you just said something that's a green flag for intelligence. You said, I don't know what you mean by that. That means that you are paying attention, Miles.
That means I'm not stupid.
Stupid people know the answer to everything.
I'm not Forrest Gump. Yeah, that's another good statement. Yeah.
So if you don't know, my definition of intellect is to create good results in a variety of contexts. So if you are able to do well at work, have good relationships, be good with your finances in a variety of contexts, you produce good results, you're smart. That's my simple.
What are your definitions?
That's my definition. And then incumbent upon that, so underneath that, an intelligent person needs very few cues to change their behavior. An intelligent person will modify their behavior towards their goal, towards what they want.
With this definition.
With my definition. Yeah. So the textbook definition of IQ, I don't even know, it's irrelevant. IQ tests are stupid. But they're stupid for predicting results because that's true, actually. What we really want to change is our behavior to get the results that we want. So having an IQ, actually, IQ is a curse. Because if you're somebody who is very gifted and talented and you pick up something really fast, you think that it should be easy to learn something new.
Yep, this is the fixed versus growth mentality crutch.
And behavior change is painful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could do it in one go, one stimulus to response, then you're really smart. You're really good.
And then a different category, if you can't, then you're dumb. And if you attach your identity and self-worth to it, then you feel like crap. So you always have to be right. So you always avoid risk.
That's right.
Not all, like on average.
So I'll give you a really good example of low IQ on my part, and for my definition, right? And okay.
Not off a Mensa score.
I must have some tremendous compassion because I have gone through some violent changes in my life in the last 5 years. But I recently paid off my credit cards, right?
Well,
which is good. You don't want, for a variety of reasons, no one wants a credit card debt. No one's like, oh, I can't figure out how to rack up my bills. So because I was out of work for a year with injuries and COVID and investing in my business when I didn't have income, I had to finance some things, and that's fine. And I paid it off, and I was like, okay, good. So cash flow, that's a good positive influence on my cash flow. I like this. And then literally 6 days later, I was like signing up for a conference and I was putting on my credit card, and I just stopped myself in the middle of it. I was like, what are you doing?
Boom. We don't need to do this anymore.
Well, I was like, you decided that you were going to make your life better. Okay. So if you can't pay for it now, you can't pay for it. And that's the new rule. That's the new reference point, behavior change, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what happened there was a conflict. I was carrying a behavior from when I wasn't working, couldn't work. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, I have to move forward. So I have to pay for it on credit, which was a true thing then. That was the best possible course of action. Now I had to unlearn to learn, and I just needed one behavior input, which is a behavior correction. Now I'm off to the thing. And you may think, well, Josh, I've learned this a long time. Well, great. Good for you. Right? Like this is I'm very competent in the physical space. I'm less competent in the financial space, but it took until I was 40. And how's that whole I am?
Yeah, but it doesn't make you stupid. Just you never got taught that growing up.
No, it doesn't make me stupid. And I wasn't taught that, but those are not mutually exclusive and don't have that much to do with one another. But that is an entirely other podcast. because what realistically, credit, when you run up consumer debt or you are bad with your finances, it's not an education problem. It's an emotional problem.
That's what I was going to go into EQ with this. Yeah.
So the EQ part of motivation is acknowledging that that you are not embodying. Like, I think if I have a superpower, it's surrender to the fact that I don't know. And I don't have guruism, but I do, like, as soon as I hear something that's much like a tiers above the way I already think about it, that person becomes the new reference point. That mentality becomes that POV, that point of view becomes the new reference point. And I let go of whatever that's what happened to me and James. I listened to like 300 podcasts. I was like, I've never heard anyone talk like this. Mm-hmm. And until I embody this myself, I will go through every course, every program until I just have the answer that he would give. And only recently did I start to be able to finish the sentences that he would have on his podcast. I'm on episode 712. Right? Years.
Yeah, he mentored you basically.
Of internalizing this message, so that I could then come up with, when someone asked a question, I would know what he was going to say. But it was such a shift. Mm-hmm. And when I asked him about pressure in real life, I was at a conference and we were just doing emotional work, sitting still in silence and doing our own mental hygiene and emotional hygiene, spiritual hygiene. I said, was it always like this? Or was it like, were your coaching courses, were they about like sales pages? He's like, oh no, I still teach that stuff. He's like, but this is why you're not doing the sales page work. This is why you're not moving products. This is why you're not growing your business. And I was like, well, what about people who say pressure makes diamonds?
No pressure, no diamonds.
He said, great. Pressure makes diamonds. It also raises your blood pressure, destroys your health and relationships, like crushes your love affair that you have with your craft. So if you're fine with consuming the thing that you're trying to use as your creative force, if you're willing to sacrifice yourself, then yeah, sure, you don't care about this part of it. If you're here, you want to be happy and get results. So the only way to do that is to go the slow route and take care of yourself along the way.
Yeah, I think you won't even notice it as pressure. Like when we go to the gym, it's pressure to work out, but it feels good, right? It's not like we're in a different space than a lot of people, of course.
Did you say going to the gym is pressure? No, the pressure to go to the gym is what people hate or want.
That's what I mean. Well, yeah, it just feels good. Like, I guess there's some sort of
catharsis. Here it is. Ryan Holiday said it, and he didn't even know he was saying it. He was talking to another person. And I thought about every moment after I heard him say this, but I think it's the right answer. He said that I don't even feel good when I write. I feel relief.
Yeah.
And it is a relief of the pressure of
relief of the pressure.
I'm not avoiding the thing that I'm supposed to do anymore.
It feels good. Yeah.
And now there's catharsis because I'm back in alignment.
I'm in alignment. I was just going to say that. Yeah. So there we go. So we think it's pressure, but it's relief.
The pressure comes from not doing. The motivation comes from doing. The motivation comes from within. As Jocko always says, the only discipline is self-discipline.
Discipline equals freedom.
But people say, like, you need to come here and motivate me, motivate my team, discipline us, teach us discipline. He's like, I can't do that. Yes, a drill instructor shows you a new reference point, but you internalize the reference point.
It's not centralized command.
It's being self-led. There's no such thing as centralized command.
Correct. Well, from time to time, there is in the military world, but decentralized command, as Jocko would say, is probably better. Yeah, being self-led is absolutely what we're trying to do.
This is a whole nother podcast. We're going to close this one out because I want to talk about this thing that you just said that I've listened to, and I've listened to podcasts. I've been involved in a couple wars in terms of theaters of war, Afghanistan, Iraq, worked with other countries.
A lot of centralized command.
America produces superior results on the battlefield, bar none. We're an order of magnitude above the next closest country, which would be probably
Great Britain,
maybe Great Britain, but it's like it's like the NFL versus a junior high football team when you look at even a country or a modern country like Iraq or India or China. And it is because, or especially Russia. I was thinking of Russia when you were just talking about centralized command.
Extreme example.
They have the reason why we don't need centralized command in the United States is because our men and women who are on the front lines, they know what the mission is.
Bingo.
And they need no instructions. They need clarity on what part of it applies to them in that moment. And that's what the leader's role is, to provide clarity. So centralized command in America is very rare. Yeah. Like literally Task Force Bayonet's commander got involved in 2 missions while I was there. And there was confusion, there was slowness, and then we were decisively engaged and needed to redirect our attention and our resources. It was break. This is Bayonet 6. Go here.
Wow.
Super calm.
He came on calm. Yeah,
super calm.
Not yelling.
Nope. Just like
no Bobby Knights.
He's like, solve this problem like this, move here now.
And you need
over it. And there's not even, it's so clear. And there was like indecision and fear about making a wrong decision. And so he read it appropriately and said, no. Now go. And then that was it. That was the only clarity that the whole 3,000 person task force needed, was that one sentence.
And he's not doing that 24/7.
Rarely, very rarely. Because I mean, the 173rd is an elite unit, and we had an amazing command structure and team. But the Colonel Bell, that was a shout out to you for the team that you created. Even those were handpicked leaders. But Americans, the way that we approach a war or a combat scenario is everyone already knows the job, the mission, like down to the T. And what they need is clarity, boundaries, and like set objectives. And that's it. Get out of the way. Now, the polar opposite is Russia, where the soldiers don't even want to be there. They have an abject objection, a raw objection to everything that they're doing. And their the threat is, do this or we'll murder you. And they get murdered anyway.
Yeah.
So
it's a lose-lose scenario.
It's like a dystopian sci-fi novel.
Yep.
And that army will always be defeated. I don't even think,
yeah.
as of this recording, I don't think they're even meeting their objectives in the Donbass. I think they're getting pushed back, and they're having stratospheric casualties. And that's not because they have inferior technology. That's not because they have inferior resources. They have
tons of
the most resourced country in the world, one of the most resources countries in the world when it comes to raw materials. And they can't put it together because of a bunch of systemic things that go into it. But the bottom line is, in America, and I sound like I'm 100 now when I say this. The reason why our version, like capitalism, the American idealism, American exceptionalism, the reason why it is a thing is because people want to be here and they want to be a part of something that's bigger than them. That's a story that's going on longer than any of us.
Yep.
And we actually have a positive narrative, a positive story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the many reasons why we're unfuckwithable. And love it or hate it, whoever wins this election, America will survive. And it's got DNA that's stronger than any party, any person, any malcontents or series of malcontents. This is not a dare, but I don't even think we could go through a military coup or junta because we have such a embedded sense of our democracy and who we are and what it is. I don't even think it's possible.
I would hope not.
Please, baby Jesus.
Lots of checks and balances.
That was not a dare.
Yeah,
that was not a dare.
Don't tempt that one. I know everyone's talking like that, but you're right. There's a lot of checks and balances and protections.
Even the people who talk about civil war, we're way off topic. We're gonna close on motivation here in about 1 second. But even when people talk about civil war, there's no one to go to war with. Like the people that you don't like are your governor, or
your neighbor. You're gonna go shoot your neighbor in the
police
face?
officers, your fire department. No one's going to war with the police. No one's doing that. No one's doing anything like that. It's not even going to happen. But we're back to motivation.
Yep.
The point about motivation is your reference points changes. So being around people who change your reference points in a positive way because that's what they embody. Drill sergeants are selected. Not everyone can be a drill sergeant. The top 10% of the Army, which is already the top 10% of the population.
That's a good point.
In terms of physically and mentally performing. Not everyone can be a drill sergeant because they embody greatness in one area, which is being a soldier. So, they embody a soldier. What it is to be a true leader. They eat, sleep, and breathe it. You cannot find an imperfection on a drill sergeant's uniform. You cannot find
They change like 4 times a day, but you don't know that.
Yeah, you can't find an imperfection on their
no sweat stains
in their eyes, in their attitude. And if you punch one in the face, they'll come back with you. A, they'll kick your ass, but B, as they choke the life out of you, they'll give you a fortune cookie answer because that's all they have is like. Someone threatened one of my drill sergeants. And he's like, soldiers. He laughed. He's like, soldiers, the stress is not between you and me. The stress is between you and your mission. And even as I choke the life out of you, it's not personal. But to be in my army, you will accomplish the mission. And that's the only way forward.
Yes, it's not personal. That's a key factor.
Motivation comes from within. It's when you identify with having an aspirational identity and an aspirational reference point, and you're willing to change it. And you will lean on the person who embodies it more because you feel it inside of your gut. Mm-hmm. Not because they have a fucking large Instagram following, because you know that they're speaking the truth. Some of the people I've gotten the most value out of, they don't have a following at all.
Yeah.
And I follow some major people like, Gary Vaynerchuk and Alex Hormozi, but it doesn't matter. It's like, it's absolutely true to the core of their being and that they're embodying the thing that you need or want, or don't listen to them. Mm-hmm. If you don't want the results they're creating, you don't follow their advice.
Yep. And becoming self-led is the thing. And that could be a whole other podcast too, how to do that and good self-talk and healing wounded parts that can hijack your consciousness and take over and blah, blah. That's a whole nother thing. But the goal is to be self-led. Well, motivation.
Get motivated. So what's your takeaway? If there's an area in your life where you lack motivation, write out the outcomes that you want and then identify the people. So when I was a young man, it was having big muscles. So pick Dan Green, Chris Duffin. These are world record setting powerlifters. And they're lean, they're strong, they're lean, they're thoughtful, they're creative, and they embodied what I wanted to be. So I just did what they did.
So find the people who are doing the thing you want to do and start learning, start being mentored.
Yep. And you don't have to fly to their house and bug the shit out of them. Follow their content, follow their programs, buy their book, whatever it is, and get their ideas in your head to replace your old ideas. And pretty soon you won't be needing motivation. You'll be motivating other people.
Yeah, you'll probably have your own take on it, but that's even better. That's what you want to do. You don't want to be, you can't become them, otherwise you're being inauthentic, but you can adopt a version of what they say and make it your own. And that we're all doing that. I mean, all of us in my field, we're all standing on the shoulders of giants, building up on top of each other and sharing intel. And that's good.
You'll be able to do something that they couldn't do. You'll be the best version of yourself.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we're all trying to do. Yeah. Good way to end it.
Perfect.
All right. Do we know what we're talking about next week? A little teaser, or we're still brainstorming that one?
Oh, wait, well, we've got so many threads to pull on. Well, we'll definitely get to, let's talk about being self-led next week. That's going to lead us down the self-healing journey, which is why we're here. So stay on the path of the warrior, heal yourself, get stronger, and be self-led. So tune in next week.
Bingo. We're out.
Peace.